Good morning, folks. Good morning, everybody. Quiet crowd this morning. We open every service with announcements, and we do have a couple announcements for you this morning, starting with Mark Anderson. Mark, would you?
Good morning. I have a couple of announcements about our outreach program. You may have noticed in the gathering place we've got a table on my left as you exit that has information about nominations for Share the Plate for next year. You need to make those nominations because without your nominations, the committee doesn't know who to give it to. We're just lost. No, so you have until the 24th, which is 2 weeks. You can do it online, and there's information in the e-blast, or you can look at the information out there. Or you can, if you like to do a paper copy, there are some paper copies out there. Just remember to do both sides. Last year we got one that had only the front side done, and so that didn't really count. So do both sides. The other thing is on the 24th also, the outreach committee, our other responsibility is to make the disbursements for outreach that come from the board, that come from the endowment fund. This year we had about $10,000 to give, and the outreach committee, which was myself, Janet Dawson, and Alejandra Posada, we selected the women's home. On the 24th, in adult education, there will be a representative from the women's home come and tell you about their program, so I'm not going to talk about it today. But later in the service, we will be making the presentation to them. So please come on the 24th and see what your money is doing in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. It's interesting how they chose the women's home and why. So you want to come and listen to that. They put a lot of effort into doing that in a way that they thought best represented the hopes and dreams and aspirations of this congregation. A couple other announcements. The book club will commence operations again. Yay. The book club is starting on Tuesday, November 12th. Is that this Tuesday? What day is it? Oh, yeah. The book club will start on Tuesday, so get reading. Do we know what we should be reading, or are we deciding what to read?
It's an organizing meeting.
Ah. So if you care about what book you want to read, you need to be there Tuesday on Zoom and deciding whether you're going to be on Zoom or live or both or all those other questions. But the meeting this Tuesday is on Zoom. And was the link in the news, in the e-blast?
See myself or Jill Rose
For the link, okay. Okay, so we have a link, great. Oh, that's a very good question. 7 p.m. on Zoom only. This is our first meeting since 2022. We're going to reinvigorate our forum for book lovers. Even if you're just book agnostic, go to the book club. Okay, lunch bunch today. We have this formal meeting that we do. You just show up if you want to. If you want to continue the discussion from service, lunch bunch is at 12:15 at Common Bond, which is right here on the corner of San Felipe and Bering. And I was told to tell all of y'all we're going to meet on the second floor. I didn't even know there was a second floor. So there's apparently a meeting room that you can meet in on the second floor. It's a little bit quieter and less cluttered. So you are all welcome, even if you've just been here a little while, you are all welcome to join us at Common Bond today. Between lunch bunch and the service, we will have coffee in the gathering place and more conversation. We would especially like to welcome those of you who are new around here or maybe returning from a brief or not so brief absence. We welcome you back. If you have If you're not currently getting our twice weekly newsletters, you can get them by filling in the yellow card in the pews and handing that in. And if you did not get a beautiful welcome kit, which I don't have one here, but it's a very wonderful welcome kit, we can help you with that at the welcome table, where we have a welcome kit that gets into some details about this church and about Unitarian Universalism in general. So we welcome all of you here this morning. It is an important time for you to be here. And I now invite Charlie to bring us into the formal part of our service.
And now we transition into our sacred time together, a time of reverence, a time of attention, a time of intention. I invite you to join us in this time, marked by the lighting of our chalice flame. Reverend Ed, please come forward and light our chalice. I invite those of you at home to light a candle where you are, to join in spirit. We mark this sacred time with words, important words, that bring us into a time of collective intention. As we light our chalice flame here in the sanctuary, we read our chalice words for the month. The words this month are short but meaningful. They are from John A. Shedd, who was an American author, most well known for his 1928 book of anecdotes, Salt in My Attic. His words have been misattributed to a great many people, including Albert Einstein and U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Grace Murray Hopper. Please join me in reading these words together as they appear on the screen. A ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are for. Emerson is a beloved community of faith, reason, and affection. We welcome all to grow in mind and spirit as we build a better world. We do this by gathering to seek, learn, and grow, and in the course of our work to promote love among each other, our congregation, and the wider community here in Houston. Whether you're here in the sanctuary or joining us on Zoom or Facebook, we welcome you. No matter where you are in your personal spiritual journey, we invite you to live, learn, love, and grow with us. As a covenantal community, we aspire to promote love, fellowship, and social justice, as well as support for your personal growth. Please join me in our welcoming words. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. And now, our weekly presentation of This Week in Unitarian Universalist History with Richard Cummins.
Thank you, Ruth. Good morning. This day in UU history, this wonderful book by Frank Schulman, covers 600 years of religious tradition. So for the week of November 4th to November 10th, I've picked a few interesting items. On the 6th, in 1654, the British House of Commons, under the protectorate of Oliver Cromwell, began debate on the liberty of conscience, which resulted in general tolerance for religious views, but was overturned when Charles II was restored to the monarchy in 1660. Cromwell, although not Unitarian, defended the rights of Unitarians and all dissenters to worship according to their own preference as long as they kept the peace. Although he disagreed with the beliefs of the Unitarian John Biddle, he protected him against persecution by Parliament. On the 8th, in 1638, the first church and parish in Dedham, Massachusetts, was organized on this date. This church, now UU, was the focus of the Dedham decision, a decision by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court in 1820 that gave property rights to parishes rather than churches, and in the process influenced every congregational church in Massachusetts. The decision arose from a division within the Dedham Church between the more conservative Trinitarian members, and they withdrew from the church, taking some of the church property with them, and the parish sued for the return of the property. The resulting decision in favor of the parish changed a long-standing tradition whereby church members held the right to church property. The important fact is this cleared the way for the new liberal Unitarianism that was emerging in America in the 1820s. And within 20 years, 1/4 of the congregational churches in Massachusetts were Unitarian. Lastly, on the 9th, in 1805, Harriet Kezia Hunt, a lifelong Universalist, was born in Boston, Massachusetts. She was a pioneer in medical practice and a strong advocate of abolition, women's rights, and public health education. In 1827, she opened a school. She stressed strong family life as a key to health and well-being, and mental health as a strong factor in physical health. And she published her autobiography in 1856. That was This Day in UU History. Reverend Ed.
Imagine if you didn't like your church, that you could grab something and walk out. That's mine. But that was true. And what they were fighting over was the communion set, which was silver, and is now like in a museum somewhere and worth $1 billion or something. It was, anyways, it's a very interesting story, and it got really ugly. That's my silver set. Who took the silver set? Did somebody take the silver? Can you imagine just walking out with stuff? Oh, thank God for a reason. Isn't it a nice thing? Anyway, Each time, my friends, we are gathered here, we hear words from one of our 6 Unitarian Universalist sources. Today, we hear the words from Jesus of Nazareth, as quoted in the Christian scriptures, specifically in the Gospel of Matthew at the end of chapter 5. For those of you with a Christian background, you might know these words because they are at the end of one of Jesus' most noted speeches, commonly referred to as the Sermon on the Mount. Today, as I always do, I read from the Message Bible, which is important to note is not a translation, but it is a paraphrasing into modern English. So it is meant to bring into English the same power that the original language had. And remember, this was not written down in the original language. Jesus spoke Aramaic, and this is probably first written down in Greek. So there's a lot of language issues in it. But this is the Message's translation of the last bit of the Sermon on the Mount. Here's another old saying that deserves a second look. This is Jesus talking. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Is that going to get us anywhere? Here's what I propose. Don't hit back at all. If someone strikes you, just stand there and take it. If someone drags you into court and sues for the shirt off your back, gift wrap your best coat and make a present of it. And if someone takes unfair advantage of you, use the occasion to practice the servant life. No more tit-for-tat stuff. Live generously. You're familiar with the old written law, love your friend, and its unwritten companion, hate your enemy. I'm challenging that. I'm telling you to love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the supple moves of prayer. For then you are working out of your true selves, your God-created selves. This is what God does. He gives you his best, the sun to warm and the rain to nourish, to everyone, regardless, the good, the bad, the nice, the nasty. If all you do is love the lovable, what do you expect, a bonus? Anybody can do that. If you simply say hello to those who greet you, do you expect some sort of medal? Any run-of-the-mill sinner does that. In a word, what I'm saying is, grow up. You're kingdom subjects. Now live like it. Live out your God-created identity. Live generously. Live graciously toward others the way God lives toward you. And now, my friends, with our chalices lit and our hearts and our minds centered, we invite you to help us sing a hymn. The hymn is in the teal hymnal. The words will be on the screen. The hymn is number 1054, Let This Be a House of Peace. Let this be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be a house, a haven for the healing, an open room for question and our inspiration. Let this be a house My friends, we had been honoring joys and concerns here on the 5th Sunday of the month. And this is not the 5th Sunday of the month. But I just felt like today, with all that is going on, I would like to open up joys and concerns as a ritual for you. If you are sitting there, and if you are concerned that the events of this week, specifically referring to the election of this week, if you are concerned for a particular person in your life because of this election, I invite you to come forward and light a candle for that particular person, to allow yourselves a moment to let that concern fill the air in this room. Let it into the world that you are concerned about this person. And if you are moved for any other reason, I'm not going to tell you not to come up, but if you are moved for any other reason, I would also invite you to come. Light a candle from our chalice. These were lit from our chalice. Light a candle from our chalice to just make real for a moment the concerns that you are carrying. You don't have to do this. This is not a requirement. This is not part of a thing that everybody does. Maybe some of you aren't feeling that way. Maybe some of you aren't carrying concerns for a particular person. It's fine to just sit there. But witness, if you will, the people who are carrying concerns for the welfare of particular people in their lives. I invite you, and just as a practical thing, because we're still kind of new at this, if you're early, if you're one of the first people to come, try to put your candle toward the middle, because what happens is you end up with this ring of candles and you can't get over them to put your candle in a while. And I don't mean to make it all practical, but try to keep your candle toward the middle so that people don't cook themselves trying to place their own candles. So Charlie, if you would play us some music while we experience this ritual together, I would thank you.
We gather on the morning after.
My friends, I invite you to recognize the concern that sits here in front of you in this beautiful display. And the dichotomy of how wonderful it looks and what it represents. I invite you to be one with this. Whether you lit a candle or not, we are all in this together. We at Emerson are members of something called the Unitarian Universalist Association. This is a group of congregations that gets together to form an organization, an association to help us do the things we need to do. And that association of congregations has a president. Her name they're elected for 6 years. This one was elected last year, and her name is the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. Sorry. And Reverend Betancourt produced a message this week that I think some of you might like to hear. So we are going to play the message distributed by Reverend Sophia earlier in the week.
We gather on the morning after, in a time of great fear and devastation and very real risk to ourselves and our beloveds. There's so much that we cannot yet know, even if we know the shape and fear the character of our next governmental administration. We cannot fully know what is yet to come in this country. What I do know, beyond any reasonable doubt, is that we are a sanctuary people. We can make that claim from the powerful efforts of our elders in the middle of the 20th century through to our congregations and communities offering shelter to migrants today. Whether Harbor or Pink Haven, our homes, sanctuaries, and even our national headquarters model what it means to offer solidarity, shelter, and asylum in the face of what many of us cannot begin to imagine. These are times that will be defined by the continued and increased need for organizing and a faithful commitment to mutual aid. I want to invite us all back to what we learned in our earliest understandings of what humanity itself means. We draw our purpose from the call to honor and uphold the non-negotiable sacredness of each and every person, of earth and of all beings, bound up together in an abiding love that rests in the call to justice. So many of us are afraid today, fearful for the safety of our loved ones and overwhelmed by the public plans to deny basic human rights. I invite us to feel the reality of that concern and to hold one another in our grieving. I also want us to remember how very many others in our UU communities and across the nation share our values and prepared all the way through this election for what might be asked of us through the remainder of this month and beyond. Look to your community partners. Draw on all that you have learned through UU the Vote and other opportunities to work for electoral justice, and know that you are never alone. Your UUA will be with you this day and for all the days to come. We have been planning for this possibility and are here to offer best practices for safety, theology, spiritual practice, and communal care. We will rest in the strength of our covenants and bring that love, generosity, sacred witness, and values driven interdependence to bear as we work toward a future where our liberation is collective and all of our people count themselves whole. I love you. Let us keep working toward all that we hold most holy together. Amen. Ashe, and blessed be.
Each time we gather, we ask you to help in fulfilling this church's mission. The success of this church and of the principles we support is made possible by the work of our members and friends and by your financial support. We honor that support by striving to live the mission of this place fully and wholeheartedly. Here at Emerson, this collection does not go to funding our church, which is funded through the pledges of our members. This collection each week goes to fund the work of important partners of Emerson who, in our opinion, live out our Unitarian Universalist values in our community and in the world beyond our community. The act of giving, our financial support, is both a transformative spiritual act and one way we live our values. 75% of today's offering will go to our November Share the Plate recipient, Plant It Forward. Plant It Forward offers economically disadvantaged refugees an opportunity to become self-sufficient through growing, harvesting, and selling organic produce. The organization secures land, trains and mentors farmers, and facilitates sales to local markets. After a year of training in gardening, as well as business practices, each farmer is loaned land for their own urban farm to sell under the Plant It Forward brand. Plant It Forward facilitates 22 locations and creates markets for the farmer's produce. The remaining 25% of today's offering will go, as always, to Interfaith Ministries Meals on Wheels, which provides thousands of meals every day to Houston's homebound seniors. You can go to our webpage for online giving, put cash or check in our offering baskets, or mail a check to the church.
This is the part in the service where we offer you a moment to rest and be with yourselves and connect back to all that is you and greater than you. Today, I would like to ask you to focus your attention during our meditation time on our candles here in the sanctuary. Focus on them if you can without focusing on them. Allow their individual lights to merge into one light and become one with what they are saying to you while you are here in this time together.
So lift us up to the the whole world round, but I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly, and may the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though they burn our eyes. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift us up to the light of change. Give me a mighty oak to hold my confusion. Give me a desert to hold my fears. Give me a sunset to hold my wonder. Give me an ocean to hold my tears. Sing with me, I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift us up in the light of change. I am open, I am open, and I am willing, which seems so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift us up in the light of change.
The words for our second reading today come from American writer Ernest Hemingway. Hemingway lived a short 61 years, almost entirely in the 20th century. This quote comes late in his third novel, A Farewell to Arms. Here are his thoughts for your reflection this morning. The world breaks everyone, and afterward many are strong at the broken places. But those that it will not break, it kills. It kills the very good and the very gentle and the very brave impartially. If you are none of these, you can be sure it will kill you too, but there will be no special hurry.
Hello, God. It's me, Ed. I'm not even sure which God I'm talking to, but that probably doesn't matter much at this point. Being a polytheist can be confusing every now and then. I've got to ask your advice on something that's bothering me. But before I can do that, though, I have to fill you in on some details of which you are probably not aware. I mean, being not subject to time and physics and all, I'm pretty sure you're also not subject to all this human nonsense I'm thinking about right now, so I'm thinking some background might be helpful. I guess at the heart of all this human nonsense is that humans just don't get along very well. Most of this not getting along comes from fear of not having stuff they need to be happy. And this is despite living on a planet that is producing more than we can ever use to be happy. And when I say happy, I don't mean a spiritual happiness, which is the happiness you're probably worried about. I mean a temporal happiness, the kind of happiness that comes from things, not the kind of happiness that comes from ourselves. In this world of abundance, you see, God, I guess the reason we're not fearful of being happy is fear that we might be slightly less happy than our neighbor, or that someone somewhere could possibly have nicer things and therefore be happier than we could be, and we don't want to hear about none of that. Interestingly, you may be wondering, some of us have surrounded ourselves with so much extra stuff that the extra stuff itself brings unhappiness to us. But that is another kettle of fish, maybe for another prayer on a different day. Come to think of it, maybe I was wrong about that first part as I'm talking. Maybe all this not getting along is not because we're afraid of being unhappy, but because we're afraid of missing out on someone else's happiness. So maybe the problem is that we can't even define happiness for ourselves anymore. Instead, we rely on what other people tell us happiness is. Either way, the point is, humans just don't get along very well at all. And listen, I know that some religions claim that we humans were created in the likeness of you gods, but honestly, sometimes that's hard to see. Anyway, as a result of all this fear of being unhappy or not quite happy enough or being so weak of spirit that we can't even define what happiness is for ourselves, you see, we've created these systems that were originally designed to give everyone some fair chance at actually being happy. We call them governments because they do for us what we can't seem to do for ourselves, govern. Just to make things even more complex, you've heard of Rube Goldberg, I imagine. We've gone through and divided the world into subgroups. Some of them are quite large, some of them are quite small. Each one of these subgroups organizes their own government, and they all do it slightly differently. But in the end, these governments all roughly fill the same need. They are essentially small groups of people whose task it is to see to it that everyone in the larger group has a fair shake at happiness. So, God, generally speaking, these small groups of people basically do three things for us, all originally designed to improve people's chances at happiness. One, they make rules that we all more or less agree to live by. Two, they make sure those rules are followed. And three, when arguments happen because the rules weren't followed, they handle those arguments. They settle those arguments. On the surface, absent us humans actually just getting along, it's a pretty good setup on the surface. The problem is that after a while, these small groups of people, these groups who were asked by the larger groups to govern, figured out that they could use government instead of making sure that everyone in the larger group had a fair shake. They could use government to their own favor. They could rig the game in their favor. Essentially, they managed to turn the obligation to serve into an opportunity for self-service. So God, of course, rigging the game was what governments were set up to stop from happening in the first place. So let me tell you, it's a mess, and it's been a mess for a while, and it's going to get even messier. Every now and then, someone comes along and makes a change to the way these small groups are the ones that are selected to govern. Every now and then we come along, we make a change. One change that happened a while ago was to make sure that the people in these groups got changed out with some frequency. This was to avoid people from gaining too much favor. Another change was to let people in the larger group have a say as to who was in the smaller group. Where and when I live, they let everyone who wants to have a say have a say. This, of course, is a terrible idea. But at least for now, it's the best idea we've got going. Excluding, of course, the totally wild-eyed notion of us just plain old getting along in the first place. Recently, where and when I live, a group of people decided that we needed to change out the governors. And this change became, most of the time these changes are no big deal, but this change became a referendum as to what was the best way to achieve this widespread happiness. I'm sure you're wondering, what caused this referendum? Were people suffering? Yes, sure. But we, for some reason, have chosen to live in a world where a certain amount of suffering is all but guaranteed. And the suffering, despite needing to be addressed, was well within recent historical norms. Was happiness being lost? Yes, again. Our system does not even pretend to guarantee happiness and loss of happiness or loss of access to happiness was not particularly widespread, but the referendum continued anyway. So why? Well, I'm not an expert, but as close as I can figure, people were led to believe that they were worse off than they'd ever been before, despite there being a fair and solid argument that could be made to say that people, where and when I live, could have been actually experienced one of the highest levels of happiness ever experienced in all of human history. However, the referendum started, and for whatever reason it started, there it was. And generally speaking, there were two responses to it. One group, we'll call them the blue team, thought things were going quite well. And despite needing a few minor changes to happen, the blue team was, for the most part, pretty content with the way things were going and thought they could keep opening up happiness to people as they went. The other group, we'll call them the red team, thought that things were going terribly wrong and that major changes needed to happen. Why only two teams, you ask? Well, that's a story for another prayer. Anyway, the blue team considered the red team to be at best unaware and at worst tempted by cruelty. For their part, the red team considered the blue team to be at best weak and at worst suffering from delusions of grandeur. And being humans as we are, there were all kinds of subtleties thrown in. Disdain for women, disdain for foreigners living amongst us, disdain for certain religious groups, and for the working class, and those are the big ones. And in the end, the red team won the referendum by a considerable margin. Personally, not that it matters, I'm considered to be on the blue team, or at least I can confidently say that I don't favor the red team. I would probably choose a third team if there was one, but again, that's a story for another prayer. Here is where the problem comes in for me, God, and this is why I'm talking with you today. What I have chosen to do with my life is to walk with others as they experience the mystery of being human. Yes, I know it's a good gig. Too good to be true, really. One way I walk with them is I look to widen my community's circle of concern and keep love at the center. We call this creating the beloved community. The result of this most recent referendum, at least as far as I can see, is a call for a government of cruelty towards certain groups of people within the larger group. a call to single some groups out and chip away at their fair shake of happiness, presumably reallocating their fair shake of happiness to preferred groups. This referendum loudly and clearly said, our circle is already too wide. We need to narrow it, they said. We need to shrink it, they said. This referendum calls loudly and clearly for eliminating or even eliminating some people's fair shake at happiness, which is contrary to the mission that I have set for myself and my people have set for themselves. Some of these people who stand to lose their view of happiness are very close to me. Some of those people are the people who've chosen me to walk with them. Some of these people are not close to me per se, but they are close to some of those people who are close to me. And for that reason, my people, my community is suffering and foreboding our immediate future. Even the ones who are maybe less in danger of losing their fair shake at happiness can see that this referendum means a cultural shift from embracing our goals of beloved community to rejecting them. My people's response to this referendum is all over the place. Some are worried, legitimately, God. Some are worried that some of this pending government of cruelty will reduce or eliminate their fair shake at happiness, or worse. Others are worried that some of this pending government of cruelty will reduce or eliminate the fair shake of happiness for people they love, people close to them. And yet others are worried for groups of people they don't really even know. Some are worried. Some are disgusted that so many people, most of them more similar to us than different, saw this government of cruelty as the best option. Some are worried, some are disgusted, and some are angry. Angry enough to wish harm on people who lead and follow this new government of cruelty. Some are worried, some are disgusted, some are angry, and some, God, are exhausted. Exhausted, you ask? Yes. This actually has been going on for quite some time. Some people feel that they have spent their whole lives fighting against these governments of cruelty, and they are tired. Some are worried, some are disgusted, some are angry, some are exhausted, and some are on the red team. Some are upset with me for using the term government of cruelty. They don't see it that way, and I risk running them off at a time where we need them the most. If we are going to understand this referendum and how it came to be, we are going to need to be able to talk to each other. It is going to be some tricky business, God, to be able to find a way to widen our circle, to include people who would actively work to shrink that same circle. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds a lot like tolerating intolerance, but it's not. It's different, I assure you. The only hope we have for resolving this ongoing clash at a fair shake at happiness for everyone is by listening to each other. I promise you, I will not compromise my boundaries or corrupt my moral compass. Both are too strong for that. So God, whichever of you is listening, here's my question to you. How do I talk to these people? They're all over the place. If their goal and my goal is still to walk together, to widen our circle, and to keep love at the center, How do I talk to them when they are all feeling such strong and different emotions? Some need a hug. Some need a punching bag. Some think they need a plane ticket, and honestly, some might actually need a plane ticket. Some just want to be left alone, and some just want to be with other people. They are all over the place. I love them all, and I know how important my role is for them, but I feel that I can't possibly meet them where they are right now. So it's important to me, it's important to us as a community, and it is important to our world. I do know this, that once I get to meet them where they are, I am confident that we know where we are going. This referendum has not changed our mission. We are moving along our individual and collective spiritual pathways with love at the center to an ever-widening circle of concern. Wider and wider circle of concern that includes everyone, even those who would have their circle of concern smaller and more myopic. I do know what the right answer is, and I'm hoping for some communication, something I can say, something I can do. Please send me a sign of what to do next. And if you can, please make it right now. So just have it sit right on my lap if you could. Thank you, God. Thank you for listening. And whatever role you played in getting us into this, please help us in the process of digging our way out. And now, my friends, please help in singing our second hymn, hymn number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People.
We are
We have now arrived at the part of our service where we must extinguish our chalice flame. Mary, would you extinguish our chalice flame for us? The flame is a reminder that the time we've spent together this morning is sacred and a time set apart. In the words of Reverend Brian Keeley, the chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the hearts and minds and souls of each one of you. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially in these times, with those you have yet to meet. For everyone who has joined us on YouTube, we are so happy to have you here this morning. Thank you for coming and thank you for joining us. We will be ending our stream, our service to you after the postlude, and we look forward to seeing you again real soon. To everybody else, I invite you to join us for coffee and conversation in the gathering place after our recessional and our postlude. May you have a strong week. May you have a loving week. And may you do everything you can to widen your circle and keep love at the center.